What was the craziest reason a teacher at your school got fired? Cussing out a student. It was a librarian at an elementary school. I went to HS in the early 80s in a tiny rural Appalachian town 35 miles from the closest traffic light. We had classes that taught auto mechanics, one that taught carpentry, had a motorcycle riding class and a rifle shooting class, and classes for welding and machine shop with lathes and milling machines etc. The teacher of the machine shop got arrested for making silencers for the mafia, and half the stuff he had us making as class projects on the lathes and milling machines was items he used in making them. Sent a porn link instead of Google form by email. Many students then commented on the video with a lot of great jokes. Funny times. Long story short, my French teacher was ducking the lunch lady in school property. Our AP calculus teacher in high school had a mental break, ranted for an entire class period about some nonsense, then drank an entire bottle of salsa, stormed out and never came back. They had a substitute for the rest of the semester, which was unfortunate since the sub wasn't a calculus teacher, so they were at a disadvantage for the AP test. A professor at my college was placed on administrative leave because he was charged with participating in the Rwandan genocide and was deported shortly after. He ended up being found not guilty, although I think he's still in a Rwandan prison for denying that the genocide happened. Edit. To be more clear, his opinion was that the genocide was not a genocide, and that it was a civil war in which the Hutu were victimized as much as, if not more than, the Tutsi. A history teacher I had in high school gave us a lot of random documentary movie days, during which she would just sit in the back at her desk drinking tea. The year after I graduated, she had a movie day, and when the film ended she didn't get up or do anything but sit there, eyes closed, fearing the worst. Some students went to the office and brought an administrator down who found she was passed out drunk. They found bottles in her desk. 25 years ago at my all-boys Catholic high school, a priest was accused of court molesting a student. Of course this wasn't a firing offense for a priest back then, it was just hushed up. The guy was creepy as hell. Earlier this year I read about him in the paper, a fresh round of allegations. He was allowed to keep on going for another 25 freaking years. Our teacher was a chronic liar and lied about having a master's and a degree. Funny thing is she actually did have a relevant degree that would have got her the job. Other lies include dating Brad Pitt, being an ex-gang member, and even being a multi-millionaire but just enjoying teaching. Threw a chair across the classroom, hitting a student in the process. I think she was going through a divorce or something, but it was talk of the town throughout the whole week. We never saw her again after that. Human trafficking and 9 counts of sexual misconduct with a minor. Edit. No, it was not me. Haha, you made a funny good job. And thanks dudes, this blew up more than I expected by a lot. In high school, FL, for pay our teacher took us canoeing. Instead of checking the weather, he brought 15 freshmen into the channel our school was on. A severe thunderstorm hit, and our teacher paddled safely back to school and left us teens in the water. We tied our canoes together and rowed back to school, but we were drenched and super late. Our teacher was just standing on the dock, not a care in the world. He got fired like 2 days later. Our high school art teacher got fired after someone found an old YouTube video of him painting with his ass cheeks. We held a protest to try to keep him around, but they fired him anyway. My middle school history teacher, Mr. Lewis, used to invite me and some of my friends, all girls, into his room before classes, since otherwise we had to stay in the incredibly cramped hallway. This was desirable, especially when he let us play with Cliverbit on his desktop. Mr. Lewis was pretty weird. He only ever wore velvet suits with pocket squares, and sometimes he'd randomly start crying in the middle of class. Weirdest of all, he'd make us listen to his love poetry, dedicated to his dead wife, who we later learned did not and had not existed. In retrospect, that love poetry was definitely for us. Specifically, it was for one of us, my friend Ruth, who looked notably younger than your average 12-yo. He'd always ask her to write notes on the blackboard and stare at her while she did it. The rest of us noticed Ruth was Mr. Lewis' favorite, but it didn't strike us as that weird. Well, One day, it was only Ruth who got to school early. The rest of us didn't come till later. She went into Mr. Lewis' room, and I guess he tried something. Luckily I don't think it got very far. He was put on leave. They brought him back a year later. Fun. Had a history teacher show a bunch of 7th graders drunk history. The goody two shoes of the class asked and told her mom, who complained to the school. He was fired by the end of the week. I was at a Catholic school and one teacher got fired because he remarried after a divorce. Back when I was in high school I had a history teacher who looked like Santa Claus and for the most part was a cool and funny dude. He made jokes most of the class and kept it pretty entertaining while still being informative. Well, one day there was this tall curly-haired 9th grade kid who was being loud and obnoxious in the hall, and so Santa teacher went out and asked him to stop as the kid was disrupting his class. Kid didn't listen, so he stepped out of the class and asked him nicely to stop talking so loud in the hallway. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the kid said to him, but whatever it was caused my teacher to lose it and punched the kid right in the eye and held him against the locker like the stereotypical bully does to the nerd in TV shows and movies. Kid ended up with a black eye and broken nose, and my history teacher was soon fired after that. Turns out my teacher had a bit of a mean streak that popped up every blue moon. Apparently, he almost fought a bus driver who was about to leave a student who was running late from their last class. Edit. For anyone curious, here's a news article about it. Edit 2. Oh wow, thanks for the awards, kind strangers. You're awesome. A student teacher who was coaching cheer gave a girl pain meds, narcotic, without a prescription or permission from parents. She got fired. Never heard if she managed to get a teaching license after that. Edit. Just to clarify, giving meds is usually not allowed because it's a liability issue. Everyone is perfectly allowed to bring their own pain meds that are over the counter or prescribed to them and take them, but the school can't dispense them. Also, the real issue here is that the pain meds were not over the counter and they were prescribed to the student teacher, not the cheerleader. It's pretty uncool to give a kid opioids without permission. He threw pencils at students. One day he threw a chair at a girl who annoyed him. Serious anger management issues. And then they found the child porn on his computer at school. Rumor was that he had also been grooming one of the student aides. I haven't heard a thing about him since the year he disappeared. He was caught putting a camera under the girls' swimming changing room door. Year 6, grade 5. Edit. This was about 6 years ago. Don't know what happened to him after he was fired. My language arts teacher got caught taking the bus up to the mountain to smoke weed with the ski club. This was back before the sticky icky was legal here. A teacher called one of his students and drunk confessed his obsessive love to her on voicemail, promising to leave his new wife and baby for her. Didn't get fired, but should have. 9th grade. Room of angsty teens gets a new English teacher. MRS. Redacted. This English teacher likes 3 things: Jesus, pouring pills down her autistic son's throat, and Anne Rice. During class, when talking about an assignment, a couple students talked about a student who attempted suicide and the teacher had enough. She got up and explained how to properly cut your wrists to a whole class. What an educational experience. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the awards and upvotes. I rarely bring up this teacher, but this AskReddit seemed the appropriate time. Also, I removed the name. Not my school, but one in my general area had an entire lunch period's worth of students watch a male teacher scream at his wife, female teacher in the same school, after catching her with the janitor in school. It was in a Catholic monastery school not even 10 years ago. My homeroom teacher prevented the suicide of a nun and got fired for it. That's literally all the info we pupils got at the time. Apparently you can't do anything right in this world. Taught world religion at a private Christian high school so well that kids started opening up their minds to other worldviews. I think the parents played a big role in him getting fired. Shop teacher got a sophomore pregnant. Probably not that crazy, but a history teacher who made sexually explicit commentary jokes directed largely at female students on multiple occasions, showed multiple R-rated films that had nothing to do with the curriculum, without getting parental consent. This was 6th grade, so we were 12 years old or so. He also really liked to talk about the Nanking massacre in graphic detail, especially the sexual parts, complete with pictures he put up on the projector. He devoted multiple days to it. I never got confirmation that that was what got him fired, but that was everything that I had documented with times and dates and brought up to the principal very shortly before he was never seen at school again. Edit. This got more attention than I expected. I had honestly never considered that the guy could be a pedophile and that was grooming or whatever. I was just a colossal nerd who was upset we weren't learning more history with all the time spent on movies and him chatting and joking during class time. The Nanking bit was disturbing and forever burned into my head, but right alongside the Holocaust, which in the context of a history class, a historical event, didn't seem that unreasonable to go over. It wasn't Nanking in general, but the joy he took in describing it that bothered me. And I say he spent multiple days on it, but a day for this guy was only like 10-15 minutes of actual instruction, the rest being the chatting. I was proud of my part in getting rid of him, because the rest of the year was spent actually learning history, with homework and reports and everything. I never considered that I might have had a role in curtailing the efforts of a pedophile. I never told my classmates of what I did, because they hated me enough already without them knowing I might have helped turn an easy A class into one they had to actually put a bit of effort into. Fiddled a kid at a summer camp. He's dead now, he got killed in prison 3 months in. Edit. Wow, my most awarded comment is about my old gym teacher diddling and getting killed. Nice. Other than the sick scandal with underage students that happened, my best friend got a teacher fired on accident because she was buying and selling UGR cards with students. He just so happened to say how cool it was to another teacher, which led to, well, the not so happy ending. I talked about this a few days ago, but she told me she didn't want me doing any practical work because she knew I was retarded and it's not fair that I take all her attention away from the normal children. I was 14, autistic, and it broke my ducking heart. A maths teacher got in a fist fight with the art teacher because the maths teacher stopped the guys who were doing art from leaving his maths class to take their state exam. The exam was the Junior Cert Art Practical. This was in Ireland. Edited for extra clarity and more background info. The union intervened and he got his job back. My kindergarten teacher picked me up by the neck and tossed me across the room. She wasn't actually fired, just not allowed to teach kindergarten again. Instead, she taught 2nd grade. She was my teacher that year, too. In her defense, odds are pretty good that I had it coming. A teacher at my middle school got fired because they found her picture on an adult site with no top and her number written across her chest. A really cool teacher of mine put on the 2016 Deadpool movie in class after some convincing from the class. Anyways, some kid snitched, no idea who, and because the movie was rated R she was fired. She was really cool too and I felt pretty bad. A teacher apparently got fired for doing drugs before class a couple years after I had her. I thought it was just rumors before the principal just avoided the question after being asked about it. She posted nudes on her public Facebook profile. Not sure if crazy or dumb, but my teacher when I was in 3rd grade got fired for selling us POC registered sign-on cards that she would confiscate from other classes during recess. She told us we could buy the cards, about $25, but we couldn't have them out during school hours. She was affiliated with terrorism. She was involved in a murder. No, she didn't kill anyone. She was one of the last people that was seen with the victim. She was the victim's best friend. News reporters kept on showing up to my school to try to get any words they could from my teacher, and as you can imagine it became a huge distraction for the students. It was sad. The case became pretty famous in my home state, and a law was created in the victim's name. Edit. The law called for bouncers at bars and clubs to be more thoroughly checked for any past criminal activity. My teacher's friend was murdered by a bouncer who was supposed to be helping her into a taxi after the bar closed. The bar owner didn't know that the bouncer had been a felon. I didn't really want to add too many details out of respect for my teacher, because she was honestly a wonderful person and we could tell how traumatized she was by the whole thing. But here's the case. Warning. The murder details are kinda NSFL. Broke a kid's arm because he wasn't able to answer a question or something. He was sued and fired. In my own words, one of my teachers was fired for doing sexual things during school hours, as in looking at girls' asses during track practice, and looking at porn during class. History teacher got fired for banging the music teacher on the timpani. Don't blame him. We all wanted to bang that music teacher. I had a teacher, really nice teacher, who had bad anger management issues. When he went angry he would literally flip tables. He would go berserk, scream and flip tables left and right. Eventually he kind of disappeared. When I asked my principal about him, he said that X is on leave. Never seen him again. He was really nice guy and good teacher. Too bad my classmates drove him insane. He left his laptop open in class while teaching and a student found child porn on it while trying to play a prank. Cops promptly found stashes of the stuff at his house when they investigated further, was arrested and is now in prison as far as I know. He taught students aged 11-16, organized a student choir, and was even the main teacher for some of the younger classes. This was well publicized in the local media at the time. Not just a vile nonce, but a ducking dumb one at that. Teacher took a pickaxe to a speed camera in the middle of a busy day. Not crazy, but I got a teacher fired by accident. I was in Spanish 2 and was almost failing. This was odd since I mainly had as B+S. My mom also found this odd since I went to tutoring after class and asked for other help. After talking to others in my class about my performance I realized a lot of the class was doing poor. My mom called the principal and thought she was doing so anonymously, however she forgot to 67 and the principal knew exactly who he was talking to. Next thing I know he visited our class unannounced and sat there the whole time not using his phone, iPad or laptop. He then came in a couple more times for 10+ minutes. Next school year she was no longer a teacher and was moved to iPad support in our school district. This is the kicker. I had no idea our principal was fluent in Spanish. He clearly realized our teacher had no idea what she was doing. She quit. She was the nicest teacher in the itty school in my area. Taught 10th grade history. My class was particularly very bad to her, though she also told me her other classes weren't great either. She was made fun of because though she was in her 30s, she had short and choppy grey hair, and her being nice all the time led to kids getting away with more than they should have. One day after a bad class, my class came in and started bullying her again. She had already clearly been crying and that day she had enough. She spent that day telling us that she has a very rare form of brain cancer. Showed us pictures of her just a few years back, with her husband and deceased child. Even then, some of the kids in that class had no empathy and thought it poetic justice for a teacher to get cancer. That was her last day. I hugged her on the way out. I was a shy kid. Didn't really talk much, but I wish I had said more. Unfortunately she has since passed away. The geometry teacher caught someone cheating on a test, so he took her test and took a bite out of it in front of her. Not NSFW, but it's still bizarre. While not necessarily the incident that got them fired, there was a time when one of the science teachers, new for that year, told a student that if he didn't like how they were teaching, then he should go to the office. Full stop. He got up and started walking for the door. They got in front of him and shoved him back into the room. A few months later, we suddenly had a different science teacher. Freshman year of HS we kept having bomb scares. About once a month we would have to evacuate while the police brought the bomb dogs to check out the place. Turns out it was one of our long-term subs. She got arrested, but don't know the end result. A male coach was having sex with one of the female students. She was under 16. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. That is not all. A female teacher helped keep it a secret. The female teacher left the job, spent a few days in jail, but mostly went unscathed due to her cooperation in the investigation. She did lose her license. Two excellent teachers at my high school, Miss Someone and Mr. Something, fell in love and moved in together and later got married. When they moved in together, the Catholic high school fired her for living in sin, but he got to keep his job. On a Friday night, a gym teacher girls basketball coach purposefully threw a bong out of the passenger side window of his pickup truck. He was in the passenger's seat. His wife was driving. causing it to smash on the hood of an on-duty sheriff in a marked Crown Victoria. Again, he meant it to smash on the hood of the cop car. He got out trying to assault the cop but was quickly subdued, tased. Never saw him again after that. He was a cool guy. Edit. This was at a stoplight. Not a teacher but the school resource officer. He got caught having sexual relations with a freshman. Officer was like 52. We were gathering money to go on a trip and she took the money and said that someone stole it. I bet a bunch of this will be made up or blatant lies. I've taught for 11 years and only one teacher was fired at the schools I worked at, which were huge. He was fired for punching another teacher after school. Only adults witnessed this. Some teachers quit because of various reasons and they all had rumors spread about the reason they were fired. None were even remotely true since all of the teachers quit on their own merit. Actual true firings will likely be the teachers ducking students that got arrested and shown on the news. Source: teacher. Teacher had a fling with a buddy of mine in my class. Senior year. I was in DC with the principal when it was brought to light with a We the People government debate, nationals. He was not in a good mood during that trip. She was also married with 2 kids. Article. Edit. That awkward moment when you accidentally comment with your NSFW viewing account. Grade 6. Our male teacher was apparently wrestling after hours with a girl in our class and gifting her lottery tickets. One day our principal came in, asked the teacher to come with him. They both got in the principal's car and we never saw that teacher again. In my middle school, there was a really pervy substitute who had a huge beard. One day, one of the students said MR, it looks like you have a huge bush on your face. He said on a good night I do and winked at a 13-year-old. I have a better question. What is the worst thing that a teacher didn't get fired for? Eating in a garbage can all year instead of a toilet. He had a bag of female students' hair in his desk. I still don't know what to make of it. He was one of the best and most well-liked teachers and coaches. I spent a lot of time with him due to sports, as did a lot of my friends and classmates, and he was never inappropriate. Not once. I've never spoken to anyone who has anything but positive memories of him. High school. An annoying boy thought it would be funny to slap our math teacher's ass. A middle-aged man immediately slapped that kid's face in return. Boy was invited to leave. Teacher was fired. When I was in 6th grade, my civics teacher was fired for being a white supremacist. She also kept a gag on her desk and some other objects you usually wouldn't see on a teacher's desk.